There was static in the dark, only static and the recent fumes of blood and fury. Gong's breathing was slowing fast. Lee had seen people die before. He knew what death from plasma fire looked like. Unless the commissioner and some medics got there soon, Gong was done. But why was it so dark? And why was everything so still? Harris? Lee whispered to his reopened feed. Harris? Harris's fractured avatar appeared for a moment. The lights in the hall suddenly flashed on, and everything was thrown into a stark and sudden vividness. Gong's breathing had almost stopped.
That's my... don't wear out.
Lee recognized the choppy sound of Harris's voice. He sighed and felt a wave of relief and goosebumps rising on his skin. You just gotta hold on for a few more minutes, he said to Gong, feeling the burning pain in his own side where he'd been grazed. You can manage that, can't you? Gong coughed badly. Blood frothed at the corner of his mouth. Come on, Lee said harshly and tried to lift Gong's huge body up against the pew. Did you get her? Gong whispered. Did we close the case? Don't know yet, Lee said. Harris's wide bobbing glasses appeared in Lee's right contact. What have you sneaky fellows been doing down there in the dark? Harris, where's the commissioner? Lee asked. We're in the basement of the Glade. The captain's dead. Han and Ruby Shu are too. Gong only has a few minutes. The boss man should be there. Harris whined, shaking his head, his wild fluffy hair bobbing madly. Harris, there's 100 pods down here. We need IDs and traces. Cross-reference with missing person reports and open abduction cases. I want an ID trace on Joy Gray.
Already accomplished,
Harris said.
Shall I bequeath it to thy feed?
Yes, Lee said, too relieved to be irritated. The IDs of the people inside the pods began to appear beside them, color-coded depending on their legal status. Thinly drawn lines in his feed hovered above the pods with DNA profiles and police records. Among the tags was one red line, floating above a pod just a few rows down. Joy Gray. We got her, Lee said, flicking the feed to the side. You want to try standing with me? He asked Gong. I can't, Lee, Gong whispered. Lee tried to bend down and lift him up by his shoulder, but he was too heavy. It's the last case, you gotta see it to the end. Where are the fucking medics? Gong whispered and slumped back against the kneeler. You just gotta hold on a bit longer, Lee said. You can do that, can't you? Thought you were the hardest bastard in the city. The real deal, right? The real thing. You never stop going on about it. Gong laughed and then held his side and stretched his jaw in pain. Lee grabbed him by the shoulder. Yeah, I can stand living for a few more minutes, eh? Gong whispered. I ain't going through any more of this shit. I'm done. Out. I know, Lee said. But first, we're closing this case. He stood up, and though each step brought a ripping pain in his abdomen, he walked past the pods until he came to the one with Joy Gray's ID floating above it. He found the manual release and covered his face from the warm steam rising out of it as the lid raised up. That was her, Joy Gray, lured down into the dark. She was dressed in simple linen wrappings. There were tubes attached to her temple and her mouth, several others on her body. He brought Harris back up on his feet. How do I get her out of here safely? He asked. I don't want her to fracture or something.
Wait a minute. Alright, hang on. I'm getting into the main section. Just need to... Alright, I got into hand security terminal. Oh, turns out if you want these sleeping beauties to awake, you have to kiss them one by one, and the old men require tongues.
If they want a prince, Lee said and laughed, they'll have to get you down here.
I'm waking most of them up now. All of the abductees are fine, but some of the sleepers down there have been in for years. They're on life support. Won't make it long outside the pods. I'm not touching them.
Lee didn't say anything about the two he had awoken, but he didn't feel regret, not after what he had seen. There was another oozing of steam, and the clasping gel around Joy's limbs began to slacken. She moved slightly like a waking child. Her gaze was unfocused, as though she'd been looking into a blinding light.
Yeah, just give her a moment,
Harris said.
She'll come around.
How's her health generally? Lee asked.
Yeah, she's fine.
Lee looked around as he heard the sound of several other pods opening. The combined steam drifted out like fog, like incense filling the church. Help me, please. Joy whispered softly and put out an arm as if trying to reach for something. Lee took her hand. It was cold and frail. You gonna be alright? He said quietly to Joy, not sure yet if she could even hear him. I'm police. We're gonna get you out of here, get you somewhere safe. Please, help me. Joy said again weakly and began to sob, hard in her chest. Where am I? She asked more loudly, her eyes distant with confusion. It's alright, we're going to get you to a hospital, Lee said. Several police androids, including a medical unit, were heading over towards him. Detective Gong needs medical assistance, he said. The unit immediately headed over to where Gong was slumped on the floor. Harris, can you get a message to Joy Gray's parents? Lee asked. Try them both. Let them know we found her.
Okie dokie, pokey dokie.
Lee saw the commissioner appear on the stairwell, looking into the crypt and shaking his head. Detective Lee, I ask that you let go of that victim and report immediately, the commissioner said, his voice filling the basement. Harris, tell the Grades we'll send the location of the hospital as soon as we can, Lee said. They should be back with Joy in a couple hours.
Will do,
Harris said. The commissioner was surrounded by 4 destroyer units. Lee looked past him and saw Gong being placed on a medical stretcher. You think he's gonna make it? Lee asked. That old fucker could get nuked and come back laughing, the commissioner said. Lieutenant dead, Captain dead, primary suspects dead, Gong on the ropes. You some kind of hothead now, eh, Detective Lee? Took you more for the lost poet type. You been doing steady work all night, ain't you? Making it all tick over, but then you had to stick your hand a little deeper in the machine, eh? I know you got the mark on you. Some marks, some of those internal affair rumours stick like tattoos, eh? Gong will make it. Don't you worry about that. More than can be said for the captain or the lieutenant. This some kind of fucking revolution. The commissioner walked briskly over to Lee, breaking through the steam of the open pods like a wave in the ocean. Harris has everything on an open feed. I know. I seen it, the commissioner said. Lieutenant was bent, and he'd drag half your precinct into the fold. I get it, we're cleaning up. It's a campaign as I see it now, eh? You'll make captain, obviously. Lieutenant in maybe 3 years if you bring in a few more cases like this and help me clean up the department. What do you think about that, Captain Lee? Think I want to smoke, Lee said. He let go of Joy Gray's hand and pushed aside one of the medical androids. He looked down at Gong. I'm gonna follow you, come with you, he said. Make sure you come through alright. He reached inside Gong's jacket pocket and took out a cigarette and a lighter. What do you think you're doing, Detective Lee? The commissioner asked. Did you just hear what I said? I'm about to fire up an anti-corruption campaign and you're gonna be the poster boy. That tobacco, we're flushing that away. Can't be nothing illegal on you now. No tobacco, no carbon. Put this on your poster for me, Lee said, lit the cigarette and began walking past him towards the basement stairs. If your pet technician hadn't put that feed everywhere, you would have been drooling into a tube by now, the commissioner whispered to him as he passed. The fruits of a fine career, Lee said and let out a stream of smoke through his hard-clenched teeth. It didn't taste so bad now, not bad at all. He wondered what the fire of carbon felt like on his skin. He was overcome with the thought of it, of that burning carbon in Robert Gray's house. How much would one of those old shells go for now? They were dirt cheap, nothing. You walking away from me, Detective? You gonna be a civilian, eh? Let's see how long you last in this city. I'll survive, Lee said. He took another hard drag on the cigarette, looking one last time at the dead bodies of the captain, Han and Ruby Shu. He forced his way past the gathering group of androids and officers and back through the electric glade. He felt fearless. There was no self-consciousness, no doubt in him left. It was over now, he realized. All of this would soon be sold, redecorated, reimagined. Perhaps the new owners would fill in the basement with concrete and everything that once was would exist as silently as music never heard. Maybe Gong was right. Maybe everything was that simple. Maybe it was the same story again and again, played out with stranger tech and fresh dimensions but never removed from the steady cliches of the old waking world. Maybe. Or maybe this was it.